The Grand Arena of Mystara buzzed with excitement as thousands of spectators filled the air with their cheers and chants. The annual Mystara Magical Tournament was the pinnacle of magical competition, a spectacle where the greatest wizards clashed in a battle of wits, skill, and sheer power. This year, the rivalry between the two finalists had captured the imagination of the magical world. At one end of the shimmering battlefield stood Kaelion Ardent, a prodigy of elemental magic. His fiery red robes seemed to ripple like molten lava, and his golden staff was crowned with a gem that pulsed with the heat of an inner sun. Kaelion was known for his audacity and unmatched control over fire and earth. At the other end stood Sylvara Moonglow, a master of illusion and enchantment. Her silver cloak sparkled like the night sky, and her crystal orb floated gracefully above her palm, casting an ethereal glow. Sylvara's magic was subtle yet devastating, often leaving her opponents ensnared in webs of deception before they even realized they were defeated. The two had been rivals since their days at the Arcanum Academy, where their competitive spirits had driven them to greater heights. Yet their enmity went beyond mere rivalry. Kaelion's brash, headstrong nature clashed with Sylvara's calculated and composed demeanor. The first spell, the arena fell silent as the gong sounded, signaling the start of the duel. Kaelion wasted no time, thrusting his staff forward. A torrent of flame roared towards Sylvara, spiraling like a fiery dragon. Sylvara, unfazed, raised her hand. A shimmering wall of water materialized before her, dousing the flames in a burst of steam. From the mist emerged a dozen mirrored versions of Sylvara, each one moving independently. Kaelion smirked. "You think illusions can save you?" He slammed his staff into the ground, and the earth rumbled. Jagged pillars of stone erupted from the ground, shattering the illusions one by one, until none remained. But Sylvara's voice echoed from behind him. "You missed me." Kaelion spun around, only to find himself surrounded by thorny vines that sprang from the ground, wrapping around his legs and arms. The counterattack with a roar, Kaelion summoned a wave of heat that incinerated the vines. He stomped the ground, and the arena cracked, sending tremors rippling outward. Sylvara leapt nimbly onto a floating platform of her own conjuration, avoiding the fissures. Kaelion raised both hands, and a massive fireball began to form above him, its light casting long shadows across the arena. "Let's see you dodge this," he shouted, hurling the blazing sphere toward her. Sylvara whispered an incantation, and the fireball slowed midair, shrinking until it was no larger than a candle flame. She flicked her fingers, and the tiny flame danced harmlessly into the sky. Kaelion's eyes widened. "What?" Sylvara smiled. "You rely too much on brute force." The final gambit, realizing he needed to change tactics, Kaelion reached into his robes and pulled out a small vial of glowing red liquid. He drank it, and his body became enveloped in an aura of fiery energy. With newfound speed, he closed the distance between them, unleashing a flurry of attacks. Fire, stone, and even wind. Sylvara dodged and deflected each blow, but she began to tire. Her movement slowed, and Kaelion pressed his advantage. Just as it seemed Kaelion might overwhelm her, Sylvara whispered a final spell. The arena darkened, and a dome of shimmering light surrounded them both. Inside the dome, Kaelion saw countless versions of himself, all attacking each other. He froze, unable to discern reality from illusion. Sylvara's voice echoed around him. "You cannot fight what you cannot see." Kaelion roared in frustration, unleashing a massive explosion of energy that shattered the dome.